This is Jennifer Van Alstyne. Welcome to The Social Academic. I'm here with Professor Sarah Layden. Layden, did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And I'm so excited because she has an amazing satire piece that is about social media. In fact, when I saw her post about this on LinkedIn, I knew that she was a guest I had to have here on The Social Academic. Sarah, would you introduce yourself to people?
I would be happy to. Thanks so much for having me on, Jennifer. My name is Sarah Layden, and I'm an associate professor of English at Indiana University, Indianapolis. I'm a writer, professor. I've written a few books, including most recently a short story collection called Imagine Your Life Like This, and co-authored a textbook called The Invisible Art of Literary Editing with Brian Furunas. And, I started out as a journalist where you really are not including your opinion in anything. It's just, straight facts and quotes and things like that. And so when I went into creative writing and writing fiction and poetry, and then moving into satire and humor, I really have enjoyed the freedom to insert that opinion and insert that bit of humor that I think we all have kind of bubbling under the surface sometimes, especially in moments of frustration, which is probably where Unfriend Me Now came from.
Oh, I love that. And actually, that's my next question is about the inspiration for this particular satire piece. I would love to hear what prompted you to kind of actually get this on paper.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I kind of have a running list of story ideas and things that I'm working on at any given time. And sometimes something will really spark, and you just start associating and taking it in all these different directions. And other times it might just kind of sit there in the notebook for a while. And this was one of those ones that was in the notebook for a little while. I had noticed that people on social media were beginning to post these like very passionate things about whether it was politics or movies or books or whatever, and they would say, unfriend me now if you disagree. And I thought that was so funny. I was kind of like, well, why don't you just unfriend other people? But I think that part of it is because people want to be in the group, and they want to be a part of they want to be connected to others, but at the same time they want to kind of winnow out anybody who isn't thinking in the same ways. And so, with satire, with short humor, you really kind of ramp it up and you take it to extremes, and it becomes sometimes very ludicrous, as in my piece, where it becomes about, you know, preposterous things that would not necessarily happen. But sometimes that's where we go in our minds, right? Like if you say that we're drawing a line politically, but, also unfriend me if you didn't agree that this was the best movie in 1996 or whatever the strange case might be. And that was also a
Oh.
little nod to my husband, because it took him a long time to get over the fact that Saving Private Ryan didn't win Best Picture that year.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. I'm curious, have you ever unfriended someone after seeing one of those posts?
I don't think I have. I think because maybe I'm just like a stubborn person. I'm like, no. I
Oh, so
can't
like
do
even when it relates to you, you're still like, I'm not gonna unfriend you.
I'm going to stick around. I'm going to see what happens next. I don't want to detach from this, whatever it is, this drama. And
I love it.
I also want to say, like, sometimes people are like, they're very passionate and they're very upset about a thing, and that's understandable. And I think that's kind of where it comes from. But when it gets silly, I'm just kind of like, listen, we can have our different preferences. It's fine. And I was curious too, because once you start thinking about sending a piece out, you want to see, has somebody already written about this? Is this a topic that has already been covered on various humor sites, or whatever the case is? And I didn't find anything satire wise, but I did see that some psychologists had actually studied this phenomenon. And that was really interesting to me too, to think that others had noticed that this was something going on online, and they wanted to get to the bottom of it, like psychologically. Why do we do this? What's behind it all? So that's kind of fascinating to me too, just the way people interact.
Oh, it's so interesting the way people interact online. I feel like, man, I'm kind of like a social media native. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
joining Facebook when I was in middle school. I mean, like, it
Mhm.
was really my whole life I've been on social media. What about you? When did you start on social?
That's a great question. So I am probably a little bit older. So um, I've got that divide between analog
Mm,
life and digital life. So I remember
yeah.
life before the internet. My students they always kind of gasp when I tell them we didn't get the internet until junior year of college. They're like, what did you do?
Wow.
Um, and who remembers? Like, what did we do? I don't know. Um, but at the same time, like I remember being out of touch for years. Like there are people that you didn't see for years, and then reconnecting on social media, and that caused all sorts of dramatic tension, right? But I, it is really fascinating too, like just sort of thinking about the fact that um, we're all kind of trying to norm socially
Mm,
in this space where we're not all physically present in this space, if that makes sense. Like everybody is getting a different version of the feed based on who they're connected to. And so it's like one thing may seem very normal on your feed, and then on another feed, it's just like, what? What's happening over there? So, I mean, when you think about reality and just the ways that reality can get distorted, I think that that's kind of fascinating too. But I do remember, I mean, I remember like dial-up modem, AOL chat rooms, stuff like that when I was a teenager. And then
right?
um, just how fascinating sites like Facebook and MySpace. And I don't know if you remember Friendster. You might be
Friendster.
too young. Yeah, that was like the original.
Right?
Um, yeah, like they were sort of game changers too. But I think that they do creep into our like face-to-face lives too, because we
They
start
do.
speaking and acting and behaving in ways that we might online, and they're just different places, different spaces.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really like is sometimes it allows us to have deeper or more meaningful conversations with people because we've learned something they've been open about sharing on their
Yes,
social media. And so there's this sense of unfriend me now, but also this sense of community and belonging. So it can both ways.
absolutely. No, I love that. And like the high school reunions I've been to, one thing that's been really nice is that because we are connected on Facebook, you don't have as much catching up to do in
Yeah.
terms of like, oh, tell me every little thing you've done in the last 20 or 30 years or whatever the case might be.
Mm,
Instead, it's like, wow, you just took this really great trip, and you can kind of pick up
yeah,
with people where you last saw them online, and that's kind of nice too.
that is kind of
It
nice.
kind of bridges some gaps, I think.
I like that we're bridging some gaps. Would you be open to reading Unfriend Me Now? It's published on Muse and Fury Lit. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I'm going to start with this bit from a group of psychologists. This is what I was referring to earlier, and this comes from the American Journal of Applied Psychology in 2019. Quote, well, I'll start with Unfriend Me Now. Quote, the belongingness hypothesis suggests that humans have a fundamental need to form and maintain meaningful social bonds, yet two contradictory impulses seem to guide associative behaviors: the need for inclusion and the tendency for in group preference. The phenomenon of invited unfriending, posting messages on social media petitioning those who differ from the poster on some stance to sever the relationship, exemplifies this tension. And that's Floyd, Matheny, Dinsmore, Custer, and Wu from the American Journal of Applied Psychology. Unfriend me now if you voted Republican, you voted Democrat, you voted independent but wrote in Bart Simpson, who is a child and ineligible. You can't handle the truth. And if you can't handle the truth isn't your favorite line from A Few Good Men. Unfriend me now if you haven't liked my latest pictures of the kids swimming, performing virtual reality parkour, jumping in a mud puddle while I'm in the background imitating Munch's The Scream, doing glitter crafts, or standing beside a tree while smiling. If you've ever tried to flood the timeline with positivity, with stock photos of a meadow or a leaping golden retriever, in the same week you described Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as shrill. If you RSVP'd on Facebook but didn't come to my Scentsy Spring Scent event, even though I gave multiple page views to your Senegence face serum soiree. If after 2 decades of hindsight you continue to insist that Shakespeare in Love was the justified Best Picture winner over Saving Private Ryan. If you didn't laugh to yourself or at least give a thumbs up when I posted that hilarious Saving Ryan's Privates video. You don't like cake. I'm sorry, what? Future cake boss here. Frosting hair, don't care. There's fondant under my fingernails. It's like you barely know me. Wait, do we know each other? Unfriend me now if you react with judgy emojis to friends' Instagram stories about cannabis gummies without researching whether they live in places where it's legal to consume cannabis gummies. If you believe Sammy Hagar was a superior lead singer to David Lee Roth and Van Halen, and furthermore, delete me this instant if you did not put a heart on Valerie Bertinelli's beautiful post to her late ex-husband, Eddie Van Halen. They stayed friends. Unfriend me now if you have an opportunity to get in at the ground floor of your new business, a pyramid scheme for Veggie Cleanse vitamins, which taste like lawn. If you shared a how-to video for brunchy crunchy broccoli bake, but did not acknowledge using my recipe, remember unfriending your cousin for the same thing? Ms. Copycat Instagrammed your easy cheesy potatoes, which honestly are quite labor intensive. If you ignored my message about picking your brain, now I'll never be able to write my book. Unfriend me now if you're the moderator who removed my crowdsourcing post from the school group page. That's censorship, and it's unconstitutional. Now I'll never know which teachers are indoctrinating students. No, my children aren't in school. Why? If you've already read my 3 a.m. sext, you are unbelievably hot. It was inappropriate given my relationship status, which is married and not to you. If possible, please delete unread. No further unfriending action is required on your part. If you hate macrame, why share that, weirdo? You know I've fallen in love with the woven arts. If you can't handle me going live from Disney World for the 5th time today, and it's only 9:07 a.m. You have a peanut allergy. This is a pro-nut account. If you didn't retweet the unsourced radical science tips for better health, despite my plea for 15 friends to share, I found the link flashing beside a new secret recipe for brunchy crunchy broccoli bake. So scrumptious. And I'm keeping this one to myself. You want to unfriend me? Fine. I'm deleting my account from this website in 5, 4, 3, 2. One way to find me is on Blue Sky. Also Threads. Same username.
Oh, I remember reading this the first time and recognizing, honestly, so many of my friends in posts like this. Just the feeling of wanting to connect can also lead us to this feeling of recognizing all of these unique differences between us as well. I would love to hear about kind of like how you use social media. I mean, as an author, the only reason I read this piece was because you shared it on your LinkedIn, and I was like, I got to read that one.
Well, and it's so funny too, because I'm probably least active on LinkedIn. And I love that you came across it and I love that you found it. And I was sort of debating, like, oh, is this something I share here? Because it feels like different sites have different personalities in some ways, you know? Like LinkedIn is the more businessy version. Instagram obviously is going to be more photo heavy. I think we're still figuring out some of these other ones, the newer ones like Threads and Blue Sky and what they're for. But yeah, like the way that I use social media, I think it's definitely changed over the years because, as a professor, I do represent a university. I do want to really be mindful and conscious of that, that's going to reflect on my employer, some of the things I say and do, certainly. Um, but I also, I know that my work is not going to get out there unless I share it, unless I post it. So, with satire, when I had a book come out, things like that, I really do want to let people know about it, but I want to do it in a way that feels um, authentic to me and to who I am. And certainly there are times when it feels like too much, and I'm like, okay, that's enough for me. I need to, I need to sit back and just like scroll for a while and read other people's posts and take in other things. So it really
Ooh.
is this balance. Yeah.
That is so interesting. So it sounds like the overwhelm comes from creating your own content, but that you are almost like looking forward to consuming and engaging with what other people share that you get to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's kind of like this, like maybe a weird disconnect too in the content that I'm sharing. Like the primal thing or the primary thing is like the creative piece. I want to share the creative piece, but when you post something about it, you make something else out of it. And so, like in some ways, that part is overwhelming. Yeah, it can be. And as a reader, like as somebody who likes to take in other people's work and writing and yeah, I do want to participate as like a member of a community and not just somebody who's like, ooh, like blitzing you with um, like a nonstop, sign saying, buy this, read that, you know?
Oh, that's such a good point, especially for authors who are listening to this, who are like, I want to talk about my book, but I don't want to be like, buy everything. How do you balance that when you are sharing stories about your book and your writing online?
Huh, that's a really good question. I mean, I think for myself and for other writers that I know, I think that we've all kind of, we've been online for so long now that it just feels like you have to kind of show up as yourself, I think is the thing that we're recognizing and realizing, because otherwise it just feels, I mean, especially like as a Gen Xer, right? If you aren't being authentic, there's something that just feels like, oh, you're fake. Get out of here, right? Um, but that balance is so tricky. I think that it kind of points back to some of the things that we've spoken about a little bit, that you want to be you want to be a reader too. You don't just want to be the person who's saying like, no, my stuff, here's mine. Um, and part of that is just like figuring out like who are the people that I'm most apt to be connected with? Like who are the writers that, I read their work and it really resonates with me and I want to share it. It's something that feels like, oh yeah, this is something that needs a broad reach and I would love to be part of that, to putting that out in the world. So like so much of it, I mean, it comes back to this idea of the winnowing down, right? Like the unfriending in some ways, but it's just like you can winnow in ways that aren't so like comically negative, it could be just like we have a similar aesthetic, we have similar tastes, we vibe. That's what, my students like to say, right?
We
Um,
vibe.
they allow
Love
me. They allow me to say it too, I guess. But that's part of what it is, right? Like just finding like we're on the
Mm,
same frequency and it just makes sense that we would
mm,
connect in that way.
mm. So you teach, right? Like,
I do
do you teach undergrad, graduate students?
both. Yeah.
Both.
Yes, yeah.
So there's probably professors who are listening to this who are curious about, like, should I connect with my students on social media? How do other people kind of
Mm.
navigate that? And I work with so many clients who they're like wanting to stay connected to the people that they've really mentored and supported through their academic careers onto seeing and celebrating what they're up to next. And so I'm curious about how you navigate that personally, as someone
Yeah.
who's working with students.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because when I think back to like 2009, 2010, somewhere around there, I used to be I don't know if the right word is strict, but I used to just really carefully monitor like, oh, we can't connect until after the semester is over, or, there's I don't want students, looking at my feeds and saying, "Oh, she's complaining about grading again." But I also probably complain less about grading now than I ever did, you know? So, like, it's that two-way street, right? That just you become a little more mindful about what you post. You realize, like, this is not just a bulletin board where I'm throwing all my feelings every day. This is a place where, like, a lot of people from a lot of different aspects of my life know me and are connected to me, and I'm connected to them. So, um, one thing that's gotten a little bit tricky is there are certain sites that didn't exist in the past where somebody can follow you, but you don't have to accept if you have a public profile, it's just they're following you or whatever. Um, so, that tends to be my looser rule now that if somebody connects with me and they're a current student, that's fine, but I probably won't reciprocate that connection until after the semester is done. And that's just, kind of a general rule. But it also gets tricky too because I advise students on the campus literary magazine, and so we're like colleagues in some ways, where we're all working together on a team. And you know, they might not be my student one semester, but then they become a student later. So yeah,
In a different capacity,
in a different
absolutely.
capacity.
Mm,
I know, and I
mm.
know some people have tried. They're like, I'll just make two accounts. Like one will be my private account with friends and family, and one will be like my more public facing account. I think that takes a lot of bandwidth that I maybe don't have. So I don't know. I just kind of maybe think a little bit about how I'm sharing and what my audience is when I'm posting certain things.
Oh, I so appreciate your openness with that. And I like that you kind of have like this policy for yourself that it waits till the end of semester, at least on your end.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I think other people might like that as maybe a policy that they can have for themselves too. It's
Yeah.
helpful to hear your thoughts. So thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would love for people to hear about your most recent book. Is that something you're open to sharing with us before we wrap up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My story collection, it's called Imagine Your Life Like This, and it came out from the University of Wisconsin Press in 2023. And it has 10 or 11 short stories, I think 11. I'll count them real quick. But some of the stories were published previously, a few of them were not. And I was really happy that this was selected as a shortlist book for the Indiana Authors Awards, and the Wisconsin Library Association also picked it as an honored fiction book for 2023.
Congrats.
And it's realism. It's real life stories, but presented as fiction, just real people, real situations. Um, I I say real people. I mean they're fictional characters, but it's not fantasy or a genre or anything like that. And I'm really interested in this is actually tied to our conversation today, Jennifer. But in alienation, in loneliness, in the ways that people connect and don't connect, or fail to connect, or want to connect, and what happens when we don't get to meet with others in the way that we feel most seen, in the way that we feel most valued, and kind of the dysfunction that might come from that. So, some of it is about work. Some of the stories are about work too, and just being underemployed in various capacities. And, I was an adjunct for 8 years before I moved my way into my current position. So I think, a lot of people have had that experience too in academia. Um, but just sort of, what do you do with that? What do you do with wanting to mentor, wanting to teach, and feeling like you're not in the position that you want to be in? And then there are other jobs in the book too that like temp jobs, and some things that I have done, some things that I have not done, but that found their way into fiction just as I was exploring what does it mean to be a person in this time and place, and just trying to get by.
Oh, your book sounds right up my alley. I'm definitely gonna get a copy
Oh,
after this call. But I
oh,
also
good.
think
Thanks.
that feeling of loneliness, that's something that will really resonate with other academics who are listening to this. So, Sarah, I so appreciate you coming on The Social Academic to talk about your satire piece, Unfriend Me Now, and really just like this conversation about social media. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Oh gosh. Yeah, maybe just a couple of quick things. And this has been such a great
Mhm.
conversation. So I really appreciate your thoughtful questions and thanks for having me on. Um, but just, advice for others too, as we're talking about like how do you present yourself online too. I think that burnout is so common and people tend to see it as this all or nothing where they have to be posting constantly and putting themselves out there constantly or not at all. And I think you could really I think it's important to really tailor it to what suits you and what feels right. And if it feels like it's too much, then it probably is. And it's okay to take a break and to take a step back. But I would also say too, like be open to the surprises and the opportunities that putting yourself out there can create. Like this, for example, never occurred to me when I was posting this humor piece on LinkedIn that you would reach out, and that was so nice. And I've also had some other, writing and speaking and teaching opportunities that have happened because um, often something I was debating, like, should I promote this? Should I put this out to something really great, something wonderful, a connection to somebody I couldn't have predicted connecting with otherwise.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on The Social Academic. Where can people get in touch with you or connect with you after this?
Oh, good question. My website is just my name, sarahlayden.com. And my social media, I'm on Instagram as sarah.layden. And my Twitter, I'll still call it Twitter, is
You
by
did.
Sarah Layden. So BY and then my name, Sarah Layden, like a byline.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is it for our live stream, but we will be back on The Social Academic soon. Sarah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jennifer.